الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا نساء النبي لستن كأحد من النساء إن اتقيتن فلا تخضعن بالقول فيطمع الذي في قلبه مرض وقلن قولا معروفا وقرن في بيوتكن ولا تبرجن تبرج الجاهلية الأولى وأقمنا الصلاة وآتينا الزكاة وأطعنا الله ورسوله إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا واذكرن ما يتلى في بيوتكن من آيات الله والحكمة إن الله كان لطيفا خبيرا صدق الله العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Surah Ahzab, this set of ayat tells the Muslim women some standards of haya, some standards of modesty and virtue. And since the wives of the Prophet ﷺ are very virtuous, these standards of haya and taqwa have been addressed to them. But of course, these are things of haya that every Muslim woman should have. Ya nisa an-nabiyyi lastunna ka ahadin minan nisa. O wives of the Prophet ﷺ, you are not like any other woman. In ittaqaytunna fala takhda'na bil qawl. If you observe taqwa, so do not be too soft in your speech. Here the meaning is that the womankind, they have a natural tenderness, a naturally soft tone to their speech. Women, when talking to men, they should change their voice and try to not express that natural softness. So it's not about making their voice soft, but rather removing the natural softness and tenderness that is generally there in the sound and the voice of women. And the Sahaba, they applied this ayah. They have mentioned that after this ayah came, our women, when they would talk to men, they would cover their face or put their hand on the face in such a way that their tone and their voice would change. They would sound different. So this ayah proves two things. And this hadith, and the mention of this hadith, which how the Sahaba applied this ayah, is number one, women are allowed to speak to men, but they are allowed in this way that they change their voice and do not speak in an attractive voice. فَيَطْمَعَ الَّذِي فِي قَلْبِهِ مَرَضٌ وَقُلْنَ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. So that a person who might have having disease in their heart, should develop fancies about you. وَقُلْنَ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا, and do speak with appropriate words. وَقَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَ تَبَرُّجَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ الْأُولَى. This is the second commandment, which is that remain in your homes. وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَ تَبَرُّجَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ الْأُولَى, and do not display your beauty as it used to be displayed in the days of earlier ignorance. So one is that this ayah talks about hijab bil bayt, that a woman covers herself with her house, with her home. And this is the highest and the most preferable way of hijab, which is that a woman does hijab with her house and stays in her house, does not leave the house needlessly. And this is what Muslim women are supposed to do. But in this ayah again, there is reason for women, or there is allowance for women, that if they go out, they should not go out as women used to do in days of earlier ignorance, which is that they would go out without any sort of covering and would put their beauty on display. No, وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَا تَبَرُّجَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ الْأُولَى. Do not, tabarruj literally means expressing, uncovering the beauty. So when you go out, don't go out in such a way as people of days of ignorance, earlier days of ignorance used to go out. Women used to go out exposing their beauty. So therefore, the first and the foremost commandment is stay in the house. But from the Prophet ﷺ, from the Sahabiyat, it is well accepted that they used to go out of their houses based on need. For example, the Sahabiyat, the Azwaj Mutahharat, they have been mentioned to have gone out with the Prophet ﷺ in Ghazwat. Similarly, the Prophet ﷺ was accompanied at Hajj by his noble wives. So leaving the house is allowed if there is a need, but with full covering. And the details of what is that covering is coming in this same surah in the future ayat. But the highest level is that without any need, women should stay in their house. وَأَقِمْنَا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتِينَا الزَّكَاةَ وَأَطِعْنَا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. And establish salah and pay zakat and obey Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. Allah only intends to keep all sorts of filth away from you, O members of the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to make you pure through a perfect purification. So therefore, again therein, this ayah tells us that purification, highest level of purification, is found in these ways of haya. That a woman does not talk to a non-mahram person needlessly. They do not leave their house needlessly. If they have to, then they talk by changing their voice or at least removing the natural softness of the voice. And if they have to leave the house, then they cover themselves properly. So hijab bil bayt, the highest form, hijab and covering with the house. But if they have to go out, then hijab of the other kind, jilbab, that they cover, they put on a covering. Jalabib, this word is mentioned in the Quran, which literally means an overall covering that covers everything. And this is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah's intent is that Allah wants to make all members of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam entirely fully pure. Now one thing that should be noted is that the ayah, this set of ayah, starts with Ya Nisa an-Nabi lastunna. All the grammatical way structure is addressed to women. Similarly, وَقَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنْ, again women. وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَا أَقِمْنَا الصَّلَاةَ آتِينَا الزَّكَاةَ أَطِعْنَا اللَّهَ. Up to this part, it is women, because in Arabic, women are addressed in a different way. But this part of ayah, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ, عَنْكُمْ includes men and women. Ahl al-Bayt. وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ, again men and women. So the ulama have discussed that the first and the foremost meaning of Ahl al-Bayt, the Ahl Bayt or the people of the house of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are the Azwaj Mutahharat, the noble wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of them, Sayyidah Aisha, Sayyidah Khadija, all of them. But because Allah is using ankum and yutahhirakum, this means that certain men are also included, and this includes Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Hussein, Sayyidina Hassan radiyallahu anhum. So some people mistakenly say that Azwaj Mutahharat are not part of the house of the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's a very senseless thing to say. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is first and foremost addressing the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then also including men in it. And the fuqaha have sworn by it. They would go about in the streets announcing that this ayah is about the Ahlul Bayt, means the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And also the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself included Had Ali radiallahu an and Had Hassan and Hussein. At a certain instance, he covered them by his shawl and said that, Ya Allah, these are my people of the house as well. So they are also included, but the first and foremost is the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَاذْكُرْنَ مَا يُتْلَى فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ وَالْحِكْمَةِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ لَطِيفًا خَبِيرًا. The third command is that be mindful of Allah's verses and the wisdom that is recited in your homes. Of course, the houses of the noble wives of the Prophet ﷺ were the places where wahi would come to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ would be there and wahi would come. So they would see the wahi coming, and the Prophet ﷺ would express it, would narrate it to the azwaj. The command from Allah is that you be mindful of it. This also means that propagate it. So the Sahaba were made responsible, the Sahabiyat, the Azwaj Mutahharat, all of them were made responsible to be mindful and apply those ayat and hikmah. Min ayatillahi wal hikmah. So this means that the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the recited Quran, and hikmah is the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Quran is making a responsibility of the noble wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all Sahaba and Sahabiyat to preserve and propagate the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Sahaba fulfilled the same response. The same Sahaba fulfilled these both responsibilities. So both of these responsibilities were placed. So therefore this ayah is also proof that Allah preserves the words of the Quran as well as the hadith and the meaning of the Quran. The Sahaba, the same Sahaba were placed with this responsibility, and they fulfilled both of these responsibilities, and they were very particular about it. There are several instances that we can mention on their own time. Inna Allaha kana latifan khabira. Surely Allah is all kind, all aware. So fulfill that responsibility with the fullest of sense. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين آمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.